Japanese language uses 3 different writing systems. The first 2, Hiragana and Katakana, are phonetic, which means that they represent a sound. Together, they're known as the kana. Hiragana can be used to spell out any word in the Japanese language. Katakana represent mostly the same sounds as Hiragana, but they're used for foreign loanwords, names, to indicate robotic speech in literature and subtitles, people speaking with accents, and to list the pronunciation of words in dictionaries. Technically, you could write everything in Japanese using just Hiragana or Katakana, but because of the extremely large number of homonyms in Japanese, and for historical reasons as well, a third system is also used: Japanese kanji. You can learn more about those in other videos on this channel, and a tiny bit about them in this video as well. Hiragana is often written above kanji to show you how to read them phonetically, because kanji tend to have meanings and multiple phonetic readings, depending on the word that they're a part of. But today, we're just focusing on the kana. We're going to learn each Hiragana character along with its corresponding katakana character, and I'll go over how to memorize them as we learn the first 2 characters. The reason we're going to learn them together is because that we believe it's helpful to think of Hiragana and Katakana kind of like uppercase and lowercase English letters. Also, the design of each is often based on the exact same kanji. Regardless of why, I think it's easier to memorize them together. This is going to be a very long video, so I recommend breaking it up into sessions, or at least making sure you have some water or tea nearby. You might want a snack too. With all of that out of the way, let's get into it. We're going to start with the 5 vowel sounds in Japanese. There are 5 and only 5.
A, I, U, E, O.
For the first character, I'll be going into detail on how each section of the video will work. These first 2 characters represent a sound similar to the A in Atlas. Here's the native pronunciation of the character.
A.
It's important to note that this is not A, it's A. Every single Japanese kana, in every single word, is given exactly the same amount of time. You can think of each kana representing a single beat. These beats are called mora. The first 2 strokes in the hiragana A look kind of like a sword or dagger, blade facing down, stuck into an island on the round atlas below. The katakana A is simply a flag blowing in the wind, stuck into another part of the same atlas. If you really try to imagine these stories and images clearly while linking them to their respective characters, they will stick much better than if you tried to memorize them through brute force alone. With that said, while stories are a great way to remember hiragana and katakana, writing each character a few times while saying the sound out loud can also be super helpful. Combining both techniques is a surefire way to make sure that these characters each stick. Write along with Yuki here and pause the video if you need more time, or if you want to write a few extra times. I do recommend doing it 5 to 10 times for each one. The important parts to pay attention to with the hiragana A are that the sword blade goes through the bottom of the loopy part, and that loopy part cuts back through itself on top. For the katakana A, make sure that the second stroke doesn't cut through any parts of the first stroke. In this section, we'll show you various computer fonts for each character and know any differences from the written form that are important to be aware of. We'll also list how you can type it if you have the Windows Japanese IME, which is how you type in Japanese. You can download that easily off the internet or from the link in the description. If you use a Mac, the Japanese keyboard can be installed through the settings menu. You can add these keyboards on any computer regardless of what physical keyboard you have, so I highly recommend doing that early in your Japanese journey. For the hiragana A, you just type the letter A. To get the katakana, type the letter A and press F7 on Windows or Mac, and that'll convert whatever you've typed so far into katakana. In this section, we'll learn some words using only characters we've learned up to this point. When a word pops up on the screen, you'll have 3 seconds to try and read it. I recommend reading it out loud. If the word is too difficult for you to read in 3 seconds, just pause the video. You look hungry.
A.
Grab a chocolate. Oh, right. I ate all of it.
ああああああああ
All kana are based on specific Japanese kanji. The kanji that the kana are based on were originally used to represent just a sound, before hiragana and katakana were created. We won't be worrying about what these kanji mean in this video though. We'll just briefly show you the kanji of origin, the cursive version that the hiragana is based on, and the parts that the katakana are taken from, if that's clear. Often they're based on the same kanji. While this might not help some of you memorize the kana, it is still super interesting to see where they came from, and it might actually help some of you. Though the letter I is usually used to represent these in Roman characters, the sound represented by them is actually more like the E in eat.
いい
The hiragana I looks like a person's arms to me. The right one is flexing up for them to eat the pizza they're holding. The katakana I, on the other hand, looks like the evil eye of an eagle. Do you like my beautiful art? Thank goodness Yuki's here to make those more beautiful. We start on the top left for the hiragana I and make sure to sweep up the bottom towards the right, making it flow right into the second shorter stroke, which also goes top to bottom. Make sure to curve the second stroke out a bit as well, sort of bulging a little bit, like my belly. For the katakana I, we swoop down from the top right and then draw a straight line below it, giving us a small I with a swooping line instead of a dot on top. What do you think of oysters?
いいあいいいいあいあい
We don't have enough other characters to make any words with the katakana I yet, but we'll encounter it plenty later on, so that's okay. These characters represent the U sound in oof.
う
Because it's written with a U in Roman letters, though, many people mistakenly read it as Don't be one of those people. The hiragana U is the image of a person getting punched in the gut. Oof! Escaping from their lips with the punch. The katakana U is what the punched U sees in front of him. The katakana U is very similar to the hiragana, but you may already have noticed an important distinction between the two. Namely that hiragana in general is usually more circular and flowing, with each stroke leading into the next. Katakana, on the other hand, has more right angles and appears more computeristic. Is that even a word?
Au 言う
こんにちは。こんにちは。
あう会ういう言う
When written in Roman characters, or romaji as it's referred to in Japanese, these characters are represented with I. They sound like the in exercise, though.
え
The hiragana version of looks like someone with long hair and giant feet exercising by doing a Naruto run. The katakana is easy. It's a dumbbell used for exercise. ie,
いいえ
ie,
いいえ
ie,
イエーイいえいえいいえいいえいえいイエーイ
The difference between ie and ie is that there are two beats or moras of e in the word ie, and only one in ie. These characters represent the o sound in oh no.
おお
You may notice that the hiragana o looks a lot like the first character we learned. But there are a few small differences. For one, we have that little dot over on the top right. For future hiragana, when there's a floating dot like this, we'll usually make it some kind of speech bubble in the story. So store that tidbit in the back of your mind for now. We'll notice the sword from earlier, but instead of stopping at the end and then starting the loop stroke from up top, it loops right around from the bottom of the blade. This circular portion is the mouth of a sword swallower, who's cut the bottom portion of his lip while trying to swallow the sword. He shouts, "Oh no!" and the crowd shouts, "Oh no!" as they see him do it. Oh no! The katakana o is the image of an Olympic ice skater. The crowd oohs and ohs at her majestic form as she skates around the O-shaped Olympic ice skating rink. It's important to remember that the second stroke in the sword continues directly into the looping portion of o, as opposed to the one in a. Cutting sharply to the left at that point instead of making it a completely circular loop can help you balance this nicely.
Oi!
Green.
いいえ、青。お、い、おい。あ、お、青。
And that's all the vowels. While English also only has 5 or sometimes 6 vowel letters, there are as many as 20 vowel sounds in English. Fortunately, Japanese only has 5. It's important moving forward to try and make sure you only use those 5 vowel sounds when speaking Japanese. All the new characters from here out, except for one, will be a consonant sound combined with a vowel sound. But that combination will still be pronounced for just one single beat, or mora, just like the vowels we learned so far. Most consonant sounds in Japanese can be combined with all 5 vowel sounds we just learned. In charts, they're usually ordered based on those vowel sounds, and the order is the same as the one we just learned our first 5 characters in. A, I, U, E, and O. Our first consonant sound is the K sound in kick. And ordering it by vowels, we get
か、き、く、け、こ。
So let's go. Our first non-vowel kana look nearly identical to each other. These characters represent the ka sound in katana or katakana, which is convenient because those are both Japanese words.
か、か。
The hiragana ka looks like a samurai with a katana held behind his back in preparation to strike as he shouts, "Katakana power!" Katana power! In the speech bubble to the right. The katakana version of ka is what he looks like after realizing the sword is a bit too heavy. The hiragana ka is often difficult for Japanese learners to write. The trick is to keep the body of ka on the left side of the square you're writing in. An imaginary square is fine if you don't have squared paper. The drop on the right side of ka takes up the right side of the square. The katakana ka, on the other hand, takes up the whole box and is more angular, without the final drop on the right.
Kao, イカ、か、お、顔、い、か、イカ。
These characters also look similar to each other, and fortunately, they're quite easy to remember. They represent the ki sound in the English word ki.
き、き、
The hiragana ki looks like a fancy key with a round part you hold, but in a bit of an odd shape. The katakana ki doesn't have the round part that you hold on to. To make the hiragana ki look nice, write the first two strokes with a slight upward angle, and slash the vertical stroke through them almost diagonally, as opposed to straight up and down. Note here that, when written, the loop on the bottom of ki is usually not connected to the third stroke, but in fonts, it usually is.
大きい、キウイ、大きい、キウイ、お、き、い、大きい、き、う、い、キウイ。
These characters represent the ku sound, similar to the one in cool.
く、く、
The hiragana ku reminds me of a Pac-Man mouth, but instead of Pac-Man, this character is called Ku-man, with a long u sound, mainly because ku is a super casual way to say eat in Japanese. So this name literally means eat man. Anyway, Ku-man likes to eat sushi. The katakana ku is the axe or cleaver of the ghost chasing Ku-man. The ghosts are carrying out a coup because he's eaten all the sushi. For some reason, the ghost chasing Ku-man has a maniacal evil laugh.
く、く、く、く、う、く、く、く、く。
These characters represent a sound similar to the ke in the name Ken.
け、け。
The right side of the hiragana ke looks like a scimitar or curved sword or dagger to me. The first stroke over on the left will show up in a few other hiragana, so we'll make a standard story for it that we can use every single time. For this stroke, imagine a guy called Kenny. Kenny is always reaching out to grab hold of something. He really enjoys holding literally anything. He's always going to be over on the left, reaching out to hold stuff over on the right. Also, he's got a really long, stretched out head. Here, Kenny is reaching out to grab hold of the scimitar. Coincidentally, sword in Japanese is ken. But we won't learn the n sound until much later, so don't worry about that just yet. The katakana ke, on the other hand, looks an awful lot like the katakana ku, except that the curved line on the right is moved to the middle of the character for ke. Ke looks like the scene of a disaster. A cake is mid-fall off the waiter's cake tray. The first stroke in the hiragana for ke is similar to the first stroke in I, but less rounded when we cut up to the next stroke due to where the next stroke starts. It's a sharper turn, thus why we created Kenny.
計画ケーキけいかく計画ケーキケーキ
Speaking of cake, the word for cake in Japanese is a great chance for us to introduce a new concept. See this long dash? When used with katakana, this indicates that the vowel sound before it should be extended for one extra beat, or mora. The vowel sound in ke is e, so this would sound like ke, extending the e vowel sound. There are various ways to do this with hiragana, and we can actually see the first one right here in the word keikaku. What that e does is extend the vowel sound before it if it's an e or an e sound. The vowel sound in keikaku is e. So what this word really sounds like, as you may have noticed, is keikaku, not keikaku. I said that e does this for the e vowel sound as well. Well, we actually saw this earlier in the word ie, where we had two moras of e. We'll learn how to extend other vowel sounds later in the video. These characters represent the ko sound in coat.
ko ko
If you write a cute version of ko with more of a rounded top, and then write it again as if the whole thing is connected, curving it back up, you get a coat hanger. The katakana ko, on the other hand, is just the corners of a cornfield. Pay attention to how the first stroke in ko slices back down and to the left in writing, flowing nicely into the second stroke.
ここここここここあここあ
Let's practice reading some words that contain all the characters we've learned so far to help them stick even better. You'll have 3 seconds to read each, but please pause the video if you need more time. You do not need to memorize these. They're just for reading practice.
うえ上あいAIいけいけえき駅おかおかえこエコあきあきかきかきうくうくあかあか
By the way, you can get some free practice sheets for writing the hiragana, katakana, and all the words we read in this video by filling out the short form at the link in the description.
さしすせそ
These characters are usually written with the letters SA in Romaji, but they actually sound closer to the sa in sab or sock.
ささ
The hiragana sa is the face of your angry dad when he sees and smells all of your dirty socks that you've left all over the floor of your bedroom. The katakana sa, on the other hand, is your face looking out from behind the bed as you sob with a sheepish smile on your face, because you know what's coming. The hiragana sa is written very similarly to ki, except that it has one less horizontal line. The second stroke slices up to the left a bit in anticipation of the third stroke. The third stroke in the katakana sa will usually start slightly above where the second stroke started. Note that the third stroke in the hiragana sa is usually connected to the second stroke in most computer fonts, but it's usually not connected in writing.
さくサクサクさくさくさくさくサクサク
These characters represent the sound shi, as in she or sheep.
しし
In your town lives a friendly sheep called she. Every time she, the sheep, tries to write the letter J, it ends up backwards. Every time. Because she's a sheep. As for the katakana, it's the face she, the sheep, makes when she screams in silence every time she notices that she wrote J backwards again. She screams in silence, a sullen riot penetrating through her mind. The hiragana shi is easy enough to remember since it's basically a backwards J. But for the katakana, There's one thing you must note now to save yourself pain later. Shi starts with the top short line, and both short strokes are nearly horizontal. You slide the final stroke up from the left, also almost horizontally. You'll see why it's important to get this style ingrained in your head when we get to a lookalike later.
Ashi, shiku shiku, a, shi, ashi, shi, ku, shi, ku, shiku shiku.
These characters represent the sound su in the word sushi, which is convenient since that's a Japanese word. The su in soup also works.
Su, su.
The hiragana su looks sort of like a dagger with a piece of sushi poised on the blade, but turned on its side. Imagine a fancy sushi restaurant where all of the sushi is served one piece at a time, but the chefs carry it out on short katana blades. The katakana su looks like half of an image of a soup bowl being carried out by a sushi chef at the same restaurant, with the second stroke being the hand holding it. Take your time to really imagine the first stroke in this katakana as the right hand half of a bowl, as we're going to be seeing it a lot in katakana. While in fonts and cuter handwriting, the loop in the hiragana su is very circular, in many types of calligraphy, and even in handwriting, it will often appear more triangular.
Sushi, su su. Su, shi, sushi. Su, su, su su.
The sound represented by these characters is similar to the se in sell.
Se, se.
The hiragana se looks like a cute worm salesman guiding another worm, who was going in the opposite direction, to his store over on the left, to sell him something. Or maybe it's this cute salesman guy. Up to you. The katakana se is what our worm salesman looks like when the other worm notices what's happening and escapes. No selling for you today, salesman. Note how the second stroke in the hiragana se sweeps back to the left, flowing into the third stroke, which starts below the top of the second stroke. Angle the first stroke in the katakana se up to the right slightly.
A, 背負う、サクセス。せ、お、う、背負う。さ、く、せ、す、サクセス。
These characters make a sound similar to the so in do, re, mi, fa, so. And interestingly, the same note is referred to as so in Japanese as well.
そ、そ、
For the hiragana so, what I see is someone whistling the note so. But if you were to continue to draw the so to its logical conclusion, you can almost see an angular backwards S and an O, indicating so. Or I guess a Z in this zo, which we can actually make this character sound like later on in the video when we learn some special rules. The katakana so looks like the keyboard on a funky piano, where the keys are all diagonal and curvy. I don't think I'd want to play this keyboard. The hiragana so is essentially a small Z or Z with a curly Q beneath it. Thinking of it this way will help you write it more easily as well, because it really does look like a Z on top. For the katakana so, because a lookalike will be showing up later, it's important to focus on the fact that this is written nearly vertically, with both strokes being top to bottom.
そ、
ソース
そこ、
そうか。
そこ、そこ、そうす、ソース、そうか、そうか、そ
Did you notice the U in soka? Well, U performs the same job that this long guy does for katakana, and E did for the E and E vowel sounds. U does this for the vowel sounds O and U. That means we read soka like this. Soka, extending the O sound, not souka, souka. We'll learn about extending the vowel sound A later in the video.
Ta, chi, tsu, te, to.
These characters represent the ta sound in the word tacos.
Ta, ta.
The hiragana ta looks like a small t and a character we've already learned, ko, so we can immediately think taco, although taco in Japanese is tacos. Don't forget that this character is just read ta though. The katakana ta is an upside down taco, with one little piece of lettuce left hanging on inside. Or I could totally see a cute little shark, a taco-loving shark, raising his hand up to say he wants a taco. The hiragana ta is essentially a small t angled to the left a little bit with the hiragana ko tacked on.
Tacos,
Taco,
tacos,
taco,
tacos.
tacos.
大きいタコタコタコタコタコスタコス。
These characters represent the sound chi, as in cheese.
ちち
The hiragana chi looks like a person measuring a huge wheel of cheese by stretching out their arms. The katakana chi, on the other hand, looks like the same person with a French beret on his head, all happy about the cheese he's received. Nope, he did not have legs. By the way, cheese is said cheese in Japanese, but we haven't learned about the sound of zu yet, so we'll get to that later in the video. Unlike how the bottom parts of ki and sa are not connected to the upper part in writing, the bottom loop in chi is connected, just like in the font.
Chi, kuchi, chi, kuchi,
いいえ
kechi,
ちちくちくちけちけち
These characters are the first to represent a sound that's a bit new for native English speakers. It's kind of like to, but instead of pushing your tongue off the back of your palate, to, you instead leave it there and push air through, giving you a ts sound. There is no to sound in native Japanese words. Take a listen to the native version.
つつ
The hiragana tsu looks like the shoes on 2 feet skidding to a stop in the dirt or gravel. You may feel like you've seen this katakana somewhere before. That's because we've already learned its lookalike. Shi. This is shi's imposter, the tsu fox. The important thing to look out for when spotting a tsu fox wearing a sheep suit is that the eyes are nearly vertical, as is the evil grin, which runs nearly vertically down the side of its long face. We'll learn the word for fox in Japanese a bit later on, and it does have a tsu in it, so that's helpful. The hiragana tsu is essentially the same as the bottom part of the last character we learned, chi. The whole thing is angled up to the right a bit, thus why the shoes in our story were skidding to a stop. There are a number of important differences between the katakana shi and tsu that help Japanese people differentiate them. While shi is written top to bottom with nearly horizontal lines, tsu is written left to right with nearly vertical strokes. In handwriting, I think these are easier to tell apart, but in computer fonts it can get a little messy.
土靴スーツつち土くつ靴スーツスーツ
We can see why the katakana tsu is written with more vertical strokes from this kanji that it's based on. These characters represent the sound te in tek or tent.
てて
Both the hiragana and katakana te look a lot like a stylized English T. If the extra line in the katakana te throws you off though, you could imagine an arm holding a magic shield, which is useful because tate in Japanese means shield. Te looks a lot like the bottom part of so you can write it in the same way, without the Z.
鉄盾 テクテクて敵てつ鉄たてたててくてくテクテクてててき敵
The sound represented by these characters sounds like the to in toe, but shorter.
とと
The hiragana to looks like a toe with a splinter sticking out the top. When you pull it out after some extreme pain, you find that the splinter looks a lot like the katakana to, thus why it was so hard to pull out. Making the first line in the hiragana to look vertical will help make it look nicer.
テストテストテスト
You may be wondering why eto is written like this instead of this. Well, you can extend a single e sound with an extra e as well, not just with e, especially when it's a word that's written in just hiragana with no kanji. Interestingly, this kanji means stop, but when this kanji appears as a part in other kanji, it means footprint, which connects nicely to our English word we used, toe. Let's practice reading some words that contain all the characters we've learned so far to help them stick even better.
あさ朝たくしタクシーさけ酒そと外つき月かさかさたいつタイツステーキステーキちかてつ地下鉄なにぬねの
These symbols represent the na sound in nod or nocturnal.
なな
The hiragana na looks to me like a flail with a na, if on the end instead of a spiky ball, but gone horribly wrong, because the handle of the flail was made from a noodle that gets all looped up and breaks. That sends the knife flying into the side of a tree, at which the flail wielder shouts, "Nice," giving us a nice speech bubble for that dot on the right. It might be a good idea to remember that the loopy stroke here is going to be represented by a noodle in most of our stories for loopy hiragana from here on out. The katakana is just that sword flying off into the distance. Make sure to try and visualize the sequence of events here clearly so you can get the hiragana character from the story. The hiragana na has a lot of space in it, and it can be difficult to figure out where to put everything. Don't be afraid to leave a decent amount of space between things. Starting the fourth stroke directly below the start of the third stroke and around the middle of the part on the left can help you with balance here.
Sakana. いない。魚いない。泣く。なす。ない。なすない。泣く。さかな。魚。なく。泣く。なす。なす。いないいないないない。
These characters represent the sound ni, as in ni.
にに
The hiragana ni has Kenny on the left, who we learned about in the hiragana ke. Combine those two hiragana and we get Kenny. Kenny is reaching out for the coat hanger from Ko here to hang up his knee-length ninja coat. The katakana, on the other hand, is just two lines, which is convenient because the word ni in Japanese means two, and the kanji is just two lines for that too. The left hand is identical to the left side of ke, and it flows right into the ko hiragana part.
に
なに
におい肉カニ
なに
ニコニコになになににおいにおいにくにくかにかににこにこにこにこ。
These characters represent the nu sound in noodles.
ぬ、ぬ、
The sound is convenient because the hiragana clearly looks like twisting noodles, with a single chopstick speared into them from above. The katakana is the half shot of our soup bowl from Su, except that this is a bowl of ramen noodles, and there's a noodle that has slipped out, stuck to the side of the bowl. Keep in mind that it's okay for the first stroke in the hiragana nu to pass through both sides of the loop in the second stroke, though it appears to stop within the loop before going through in many computer fonts, as we'll see in the next section.
カヌー、カヌー、犬、犬、カヌー、カヌー、タヌキ、タヌキ、いぬ、犬、たぬき、たぬき、かぬ、カヌー。
These characters represent the sound ne, as in necktie.
ね、ね、
For the hiragana ne, imagine a convenience store employee for the store 7-Eleven. They're wearing a necktie in the shape of a 7, but it's covered with pictures of noodles, and it's super long, dragging on the floor just like a noodle. We'll be seeing the left side of this hiragana a few more times later on, and we'll use that 7-Eleven employee with the necktie shaped like a 7 in those stories as well, so try to really imagine him here now. The katakana is an image of his boss's arm holding him out the window upside down for coming to work with a noodle for a necktie. Yes, his boss is a shark. The left side of this hiragana will show up in a few others, as I mentioned, so you'll get used to it pretty fast, despite its complexity. After drawing the vertical line, just draw a 7 in the middle of it, and then slice right back up through the vertical line. The katakana ne is actually based on the left side of the hiragana, or rather, the kanji that they're both based on. So you'll be seeing this a lot in the future as well when you start learning kanji.
Kitsune, 猫、ネクタイ、ネクタイ、猫、きつね、きつね、ねこ、猫、ねくたい、ネクタイ。
These characters represent the no sound in the word note, or just the word no.
の、の、
The combination of the hiragana and katakana looks, to me, like Princess Leia saying no to Han Solo.
I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Her upheld arm being the katakana. An alternative for the katakana no is the character called No from our series on kanji, this cute little guy. You can also imagine the katakana as the first part of the hiragana no stroke. When I learned this, I just imagined it like a small N with the O inside of it giving us the word no. The hiragana no will look best if you try and keep the starting line in the middle of the whole loop and make it a nice tall circle. Don't forget that the katakana is drawn by pulling down from top to bottom.
Note 楽しいたのしい楽しいのとノートはひふへほ
These characters represent the ha sound in heart, and the wa in water when it's used as the wa particle, which I talk about more in other videos.
ははわわ
For the hiragana ha, we imagine our friend Kenny reaching out for a flower. Though we could try to make this a noodle, it's a bit longer and straighter than other noodles. So when this set of 3 strokes shows up, we'll go with a flower, with a petal floating away from it. Why a flower? Because in Japanese, flower is hana. So we can see right there in that word the difference in the 2 noodly strokes. Our story for the katakana ha is that someone stole the middle line in H, and you see them laughing, ha ha ha, as they run away with it. The loop in the 3rd stroke of the hiragana ha should be sort of smushed down like mochi or something. Not a perfect circle. In general, when drawing hiragana, another fun tip for better handwriting is that you should draw each stroke as if it's aiming at the next. For final strokes, since Japanese is usually written in vertical lines instead of left to right, like in English, it will often point down towards the next character. That's the case with ha as well.
花はとはな花はとはと
These characters represent the he sound in he.
ひひ
The hiragana he very much looks like a horseshoe to me. Imagine a farmer choosing one with the largest tips cutting back. He walks over to what you assumed was a horse, but no, he's about to horseshoe a hippo. The katakana looks like he, the farmer, is smiling as he admires his work horseshoeing the hippo.
いいね。
The loop of the horseshoe is on the heel of the hippo, opposite of how you'd put it on a horse. It's important to remember that the sound of he is more like the he in he than the one in hippo, but you also shouldn't be horseshoeing hippos, so... The hiragana he is not quite a straight up and down horseshoe shape, but sort of tilted to the right. Quite a bit, actually. And the final cutback is longer than the first and drawn downwards. Because as I mentioned in the ha writing section, we make our final strokes flow below towards the next character we want to write.
飛行機人ひ ひ、ひ、こ、う、き、飛行機、ひ、と、ひと、ひ、い、ひ。
These characters represent a middle ground between the fu in food and the hu in who. Listen closely to the native pronunciation here.
ふ、ふ、
We'll learn about this little circle later in the video, but when used, this character looks exactly like someone bowling. This has nothing to do with the sound fu, but who cares? The katakana fu is just our straight up half soup bowl with no frills, just being used for any kind of food. The hiragana fu will look best if you remember that every cutback and loop is aiming at the next stroke.
ふかふか、船、笛、ふ、ね、船、ふ、え、笛、ふ、か、ふ、か、ふかふか。
These characters represent the he sound in head, except when it's the e particle. Then it sounds like the e in exercise.
へ、へ、え、え。
You can learn more about grammar, like particles, in the other videos on this channel. Hit the subscribe button below if you want to keep learning more Japanese after this. Both the hiragana and katakana versions of he are just a giant mountain of hay, or a haystack. Both are essentially the same, though in some fonts, the katakana will appear a bit straighter and jagged than the hiragana. In writing, the hiragana is more rounded than the katakana, which tends to say more angular, like the font. So it's easier to tell them apart in writing than it is in fonts. The fonts basically both look the same.
へー、兵士、へとへと、へ、い、へー、へ、い、し、兵士。
Don't forget that the E in those words is only extending the E vowel sound from he.
へとへとへとへと。
These characters represent the ho sound in hold.
ほほ。
The hiragana ho is still our friend Kenny on the left, holding his hand out to grab the flower from ha. But this time, someone else is already holding the flower from above, between their pointer and thumb. Whoever it is that's holding it pulls it away from Kenny and he's left there holding out his hand. The katakana ho is a holy cross, with beams of light radiating off it. Since ho is essentially just ha, but with an extra line on top, you might have already guessed that the loop here should be like a smushed piece of mochi instead of a perfect circle, and that it should be aiming down at the next stroke at the end.
宝石
欲しい宝石欲しい
ホクホク
欲しい
ほうせき宝石ほしい欲しいほくほくほくほく
Let's practice reading some words that contain all the characters we've learned so far to help them stick even better.
はいはいないふナイフほし星なつ夏たに谷たけたけこうとコートスカートスカートヒーターヒーターおにおにぬのぬのねつねつまみむめも
These characters represent the ma sound in the American English version of mom.
まま
We didn't waste any time figuring out who took the flower that Kenny was trying to grab. It was Kenny's mom. She's now holding it further down on the stem, looking cheerfully at it. Finally, Kenny looks on from afar. Mom! He shouts. The katakana ma is mom's arms doing dumbbell rows. She's one macho mom. Remember to keep the first stroke in the hiragana ma longer than the second. This is something even natives get wrong from time to time, and it even looks a little different in some fonts. As for the katakana ma, make sure to keep the top line flat, stopping the cutback portion around the middle of the top line. The main difference between ma and a is this second stroke. A sweeps back to the left, while ma uses a straighter diagonal that goes to the right, giving us our dumbbell for mom.
Mama 魔法まほう魔法まママ
These characters represent the mi sound in meet.
み
The hiragana mi looks like a 2 and 1 combined, or added. 2 plus 1 equals mi, which has 3 lines, and incidentally looks almost the same as the kanji for 3, and gives us both the hiragana mi and the katakana. Also, when counting objects, the number 3 is mitsu in Japanese. We'll learn about that tiny tsu later on. Make sure to start the first stroke of the hiragana mi with a short horizontal line on top. You don't need to make the loop at the bottom very big. It's much less pronounced in writing than it usually is in computer fonts. The final stroke should be slightly curved to the left and starts well below the start of the first stroke. All 3 strokes in the katakana mi should be angled downwards a bit.
Umi 波神海の神
Think of that no between umi and kami like the phrase of the here. So, God of the sea if you read it backwards, which is basically what you do in Japanese half the time if you want to translate it to English. We'll see that no again, so keep it in the back of your mind.
ミニスカートみ海かみ神なみなみみにスカートミニスカート
These characters represent the mu sound in the moo of a cow.
む
The hiragana mu is the head of a cow. Mooing, obviously. The little dot on the right is the moo speech bubble. The katakana mu, on the other hand, is that cow's arm holding a bottle of milk and mooing every time he lifts it up to take a drink. The hiragana mu is kind of like a su if you make a bucket on the bottom right instead of sweeping to the left on the second stroke. That means you may see the loop being somewhat triangular in writing, similar to what Yuki did in her calligraphy for su.
虫眠いネームムース むし虫ねむい眠いねーむネームムースムース
These characters represent the me sound in metal.
めめ
For this video, we've been doing mostly hiragana followed by katakana stories, but for this one, we're going to reverse them. The katakana me is an X Games medal. The hiragana me is a person about to jump off the loopy ramp you have to jump off of in order to win said medal. Another example you could use for the hiragana me is me. Me is eye in Japanese, and this character does look kind of like an eye. The hiragana me is almost identical to nu, but without that noodly loop at the end. When drawing the katakana me, make sure to pull back the first stroke, just like the katakana no, and then make the second stroke slightly curved down and shorter than the first.
名詞めメラメラめめめいし名詞めらめらメラメラ
These characters represent the mo sound in motor.
もも
The hiragana mo looks like a fishhook, but not just any fishhook. This one has motorized oars that help it move around in the water, like a living insect. The katakana mo is just the new model that has the oars up top. The hook in the first stroke of the hiragana mo should curve back to the left a little bit, moving into the second stroke. That second stroke should be a little bit longer than the third, or about the same length. For the katakana mo, the opposite is true. The hook is flat on the bottom, almost like an L, and the first horizontal stroke is shorter than the second.
もちモーターもみもみもちもちモーターモーターもみもみもみもみやゆよ
These characters represent the ya sound in yakuza, because yakuza is a Japanese word.
やや
The hiragana for ya is a yakuza gang member with his arm around a terrified bystander trying to convince him to come into his sushi shop, which is a front for loan sharking. The katakana ya is what happens when you say no to the yakuza. That's him handing over his business card. They're pretty nice usually. The stroke order for the hiragana ya throws a lot of people off. We start with the sideways hook, Then do the dot on top, which hooks back towards the third and final stroke, which cuts diagonally to the right a bit. It looks nicest if you curve that last stroke slightly to the right. The final stroke of the katakana, on the other hand, should be diagonal, just like the hiragana, but not curved. Make it nice and straight.
Yakuza. Ya. Ya. 名詞。や。あ。や。い。や。いや。や。く。ざ。ヤクザ。
Extending the vowel sound in hiragana is actually super easy. We just use like here in the word ya. We haven't actually talked about these two little dots after the sa here, but just so you know, it makes this character sa sound like za. We'll talk more about that later in the video, but for this word, it makes it sound like yakuza. These characters represent the U sound in you.
You. You.
The hiragana yu appears commonly at the entrance to public baths because, in Japanese, a hot bath or hot water can be just yu, though it's often said as oyu. With that said, the hiragana yu actually reminds me of a fish. Just imagine this one swimming in oyu. The katakana, on the other hand, is what you look like swimming in oyu. Just please don't actually do this if you ever go to a public bath in Japan. That's very against the rules. It can be a little difficult to draw the hiragana yu nicely, but try to keep the height of your loop about the same height as the tail of the fish, and the line through the middle should be curved back to the left a bit after going through the loop. To practice, you could draw a nice big circle first, and try and make the circle of you take up the entire space. In other words, it's much rounder in writing than in most computer fonts, that is.
Oyu. Yuki. Unique. O. Yu. Oyu. Yuki. Yuki. Unique. Unique.
These characters represent the yo sound in yo-yo.
Yo. Yo.
The hiragana yo is a hand holding a yo-yo string, with the loop being the actual yo-yo down below. Or perhaps looping the yo-yo string into some tricks. The katakana yo is a yo-yo viewed from the side, though cut in half. Yo is another hiragana that many people get the stroke order wrong for. The little horizontal line on top is drawn first, angled slightly up to the right. Keep the loop on the bottom smushed, just like the one in ha and ho. Think mochi.
Yokai. ヨーヨーようかい妖怪よよヨーヨー
Let's practice reading some words that contain all the characters we've learned so far to help them stick even better.
やま山とまとトマトまちまちゆめ夢ふゆ冬おやおやこち高知てにすテニスはやい早いつよい強いさむい寒いらりるれろ
These characters represent a blend between the la sound in lock and da sound in dot.
らら
The hiragana da is a llama looking to his own left, sort of over his back. If that doesn't work for you though, perhaps this raptor shouting "run" to his raptor buddies could be helpful. Make that raptor. The katakana da is half a ramen bowl, with the line on top being the chopsticks holding up some noodles for the camera, which you'll see about 150,000 times per day on Japanese television. Sometimes this will be written with the lower portion being a smaller curve than the one you might remember from chi, but it's perfectly okay to write it exactly like chi, with basically a full-on hiragana tsu on the bottom. You should think of the top dash being directly connected to the vertical line below it.
Sora Rama 働くそら空はたらく働くらまラマ
These characters represent a blend between the li sound in leak and the d sound in deal.
り、り、
If you have trouble with any of the hiragana in the dadiru-de-ro line, I recommend just pronouncing them like li or lu, for example, li, instead of ri, because li is still closer than ri to what Japanese should sound like. And you'll often actually hear natives pronouncing it like an li for this one, instead of ri. Li, not ri. The hiragana and katakana both look like leeks growing out of the ground. The hiragana leeks are just more circular. In writing, the first and second strokes of a D are often connected, and this is reflected in fonts as well. Regardless of how you go about it though, for the hiragana, the first stroke should be shorter than the second, and will cut up towards the beginning of the second stroke, which will start above where the first stroke started. While the katakana looks similar to the hiragana, both lines are much straighter, and the second stroke starts around the same plane as the first stroke starts on.
鳥、アイスクリーム、アメリカ、とり、鳥、あいすくりーム、アイスクリーム、アメリカ、アメリカ。
These characters represent a blend between the lu sound in loop and the do sound in dude.
る、る、
The hiragana du looks like an unruly dude, with the loop being his boxing gloves as he tries to start a fight with another dude. The katakana du is this unruly dude's legs. The hiragana du starts out almost identically to so, with a small z or z. Instead of the stroke that looks like the hiragana te on the bottom though, we do a tsu that curls back in on itself. For the katakana du, make sure to curve out the first stroke and cut the end of the second stroke up at a sharp angle.
ルール、変える、作る、走る、寝る。
いや、
かえる、変える。ルール、ルール。つくる、作る。はしる、走る。寝る、寝る。
These characters represent a blend between the le sound in leg and the de sound in dead.
れ、れ。
Our 7-Eleven employee is back for the hiragana de. This time he's using his leg to play with a soccer ball while working at the register. The katakana de is a rake in a lake. The left side of the hiragana de is identical to the one in ne, so we'll write that the same. Instead of looping back in at the end though, we come straight down and then curve out to the right. The katakana de is identical to the right side of ru.
Kore, kare, それからトイレ、これ、これ、かれ、カレー、それからそれからトイレトイレ
These characters represent a blend between the lo sound in lo and the do sound in do.
ろろ
The hiragana do is basically the same as the character do, but without the loop. We can picture the dude from do rowing a rowboat. The square rowboat is the katakana do. Why is it square? Whatever. The hiragana do is written identically to do, as I just mentioned, just without the loop on the bottom. Squares in Japanese are written with what may feel like an odd stroke order at first. Vertical line for the first stroke, top to bottom in the second stroke, and closing up the box on the bottom for the third. This is identical to a kanji you'll learn early on in your kanji journey that means mouth. We use this little guy to memorize him in our kanji series here on this channel.
Shiro, kuro, kiro, kalori, shiro, shiro, kuro, kuro, kiro, kiroカロリーカロリーわおん
These characters represent the wa sound in water.
わわ
By the way, this character is never used for the wa particle that I mentioned earlier though, for some reason. The right side of the hiragana for wa is the shape that our 7-Eleven employee's mouth takes when reading the hiragana wa. The left side is, of course, that 7-Eleven employee with his wacky necktie. The katakana, on the other hand, takes us back to our punching friend U. This is what he looks like when he immediately gets whacked in the head by a whack-a-mole hammer after punching the whack-a-mole master's friend. He's so surprised that he exclaims, "Wow!" The hiragana wa has the same left side as ne and de, as I've already mentioned. The three of these characters are basically all the same until your final turn down. Then there's all kinds of weird stuff going on.
「うちはワクワクワイヤレス」「うちは うちわわくわくわくわくわいやれすワイヤレス
These characters represent the O sound in O, though they're written in Romaji as WO. This means that when people emphasize that they mean this sound, they'll sometimes pronounce it like the wo in wo. But this is a bit more rare.
お
The hiragana O looks like a small person stomping on a giant's big toe. Woe is he, because this giant won't let him get away with that. Woe is me for having to teach you this katakana. Fortunately, the chances of you seeing this O in the wild are very low. This is our trusty half bowl, except that this one has been dropped. Oh no! There's a crack! You also spilled all the oatmeal that was in it. The hiragana O can feel a little odd to write at first. The beginning of the second stroke should be pulled diagonally to the left, but the end of the stroke can be cut sharply up, and you can make it circular, or it can be drawn straight down into the next stroke, depending on what feels most comfortable to you. The final stroke should be basically identical to the second stroke in to, and should cut through the second stroke. In modern Japanese, you'll only see the hiragana o used as the object marker particle. It'll mark the object of an action in a Japanese sentence. Don't worry, I covered that in other videos. And then we have the katakana o, which is extremely rare. Usually it only shows up in alternative colloquial versions of words that have the katakana o in them. One example is otaku, which you may see spelled like this sometimes online. Emphasis on may. These characters represent the n sound in tun, sometimes the sound in tam, and sometimes the ng sound in tongue. I'll talk about when it makes those sounds in another video, which I'll link to in the description when it's finished. The hiragana n is just a fancy small letter n. Coincidentally, the sound n, with a questioning intonation, is the sound people make when they see something that's a bit confusing or they can't quite compute on the spot. Similar to the English, huh? That's the sound you make the first time you see the katakana n. Isn't that the same as this one? Well, no. N is more horizontal, with so being more vertical. So do you get it now? There are a number of important differences between the katakana so and n that help Japanese people differentiate them. They're actually the same as those that distinguish shi from tsu. N is written top stroke to bottom stroke with nearly horizontal lines, and the second stroke written left to right, while the second stroke in so is pulled back from top to bottom. Both strokes are nearly vertical. The first stroke is more to the left in so, while n's first stroke is right above the middle of the bottom stroke. Shi and tsu and n and so really illustrate why it's important to at least learn how to write hiragana and katakana, or at least katakana, because being able to write them can really help you differentiate between the characters that look alike, because you'll understand which ones are horizontal or vertical and where things should be, so it becomes much easier to read them if you can write them, specifically these characters. No word in the Japanese language begins with n. you might say? And I'd respond, well, except for that one.
お母さんかん簡単おかあさんお母さんかんたん簡単かんかん
Kang is essentially the same as the English can, so it's kantang. And that's all the hiragana and katakana. But we're not done yet. Let us know how you're feeling about them down in the comments. There's a little more for us to cover, but if you're finding the video helpful so far, please hit the like button. It really helps, I think. Let's practice reading some words that contain all the characters we've learned so far to help them stick even better.
みみ耳まつり祭りむら村なか中もり森わにワニほん本さくら桜えんえんわたし私はれる晴れるくるま車わかるわかるこあらコアラさかすサーカスみるくミルクいんくインクすいかスイカたいま ようふく洋服せんせい先生くれよんクレヨンしなりおシナリオとなめんとトーナメント
We've now covered all of the 46 characters you need to phonetically read Japanese. But that's not all of the sounds in Japanese. We can actually modify some of the rows of Hiragana and Katakana with these two symbols. The name of this symbol is dakuten. The name is perfect because to write dakuten in Japanese, we actually need to use it. Dakuten. See how it appears attached to the ta right here? What a dakuten mark does is turns an unvoiced consonant into a voiced consonant. Unvoiced consonants are things like k, s, t, and h. Notice how you can't hear my voice when I say these? Consequently, kana that start with those consonants are the only ones that can use a dakuten mark, technically. Voiced consonants are sounds like n, m, y, d, and w. See how you can hear my voice with those? That's why they're called voiced, and the other ones unvoiced. So what happens to the consonants k, s, t, and h when you mark them with a dakuten and thus need to voice them? Well, k becomes g, s becomes z, t becomes d, and h becomes b. Notice how my voice makes an appearance in these? Let's see this in practice.
がぎぐげござじずぜぞ
Notice that the shi sort of becomes ji as opposed to z, though it's sort of in between the two.
だじずでど
Fun fact, the pronunciation of ji and z are indistinguishable from ji and z, even for Japanese natives.
ばびぶべぼ
So now you know 20 more sounds in Japanese. This mark is known as a Han-dakuten or half-dakuten. This mark can only be used with the ha-hi-fu-he horo, and it makes the h sound a p or plosive sound. Let's check it out.
ぱぴぷぺぽ
Please note that the dakuten and Han-dakuten symbols are exactly the same when used with katakana. Next, we have what is called a Sokuon, or more commonly known as the small tsu. It can be used with both hiragana and katakana. While technically this indicates a geminate or lengthened consonant sound for the consonant that follows it, this is generally only true when it comes before a kana with an s or s consonant sound.
早速早速
When it comes before kana starting with a k, t, t, and p consonant sound, it sounds much more like a glottal stop. In other words, for one single beat or mora, there's no sound. For example,
待って
here's matte without it.
待て
And now with it.
待って
Did you hear the moment of silence before that te? That's what the small tsu does. This is also true for when it appears at the end of a word. The small tsu is used at the end of words in written dialogue to indicate an abrupt stop in speech at the end of a word.
ええ
It generally doesn't show up before any other kana, except for in some loan words. By the way, you'll never see this at the beginning of a sentence, and you'll generally only see these combinations. It's important when reading or writing to use this small tsu when it's supposed to be there, because it can completely change the meaning of a word. Matte means wait, but mate is some kind of drink apparently. I don't know, I've never actually heard it before. To type the small tsu in isolation, you can either type an L or an X before TSU or TU, like this. When it's within a word, double up the consonant sound that follows it to get your small tsu. For example, gakko would be typed like this. We have one more super important concept to cover in this video, but first let's get some reading practice with all of these new sounds together.
みず水かぜ風ギターギターペットペットカップカップデートデートがこう学校グラムグラムげんき元気じかん時間かぞく家族つづく続くどうが動画バンドバンドたべる食べるズボンズボンアパートアパートにほんご日本語ざいさん財産だいがく大学ちじめる縮める どようび土曜日どうぶつ動物えんぴつ鉛筆ポケットポケット
So we've covered the 46 modern hiragana and katakana, and we added 25 sounds plus the small tsu. That gives us 72 possible mora. That sounds like a lot, but did you know that English has over 1,000? That will hopefully make you feel a little better about the fact that there are still 52 sounds for us to cover. Fortunately, they're all quite simple. All you need to do to make them is combine some of the characters we already learned by attaching a second, smaller kana to the first. Kind of like the small tsu. Fortunately, we can't just make any character small. For hiragana, it's pretty much only yo, you, and ya. And we can only combine those with the kana that have a consonant and end in an e sound. So specifically these: ki, gi, shi, ji, chi, ni, hi, bi, pi, mi, and di. Please keep in mind that these new combinations are themselves one single mora. So for these, you don't say kiyo. You combine them and say kyo in one mora. Let's blast them all out.
きゃきゅきょぎゃぎゅぎょしゃしゅしょじゃじゅじょちゃちゅちょにゃにゅにょひゃひゅひょびゃびゅびょぴゃぴゅぴょみゃみゅみょりゃりゅりょ
That's 33 new sounds, giving us a total of 105. Let's try and read some common words with these combinations before heading on to the final 19 sounds.
百百きょうきょうシャツシャツジュースジュースニュースニュースキューバキューバ逆逆リュックリュックキュウリキュウリりょうり料理しょうが 生姜餃子餃子病気病気貯金貯金チューリップチューリップ牛乳牛乳宿題宿題中国中国入院入院チョコレートチョコレートじゃがいもじゃがいも
Finally, we have some sounds that are specific to foreign loanwords and foreign names. Some of them are quite difficult even for Japanese people to say, but they had to create them if they wanted to try and say our names and the names of our companies. For example, there's no hiragana or katakana for the sound che, so it'd be very difficult for someone to say the English name Chase in Japanese, right? Well, that would be written like this.
チェスチェス
See that tiny e? Yep, that's how we do it. Small versions of the vowels a, I, e, o, and more rarely u can be used in katakana to create sounds that didn't exist in Japanese before. Some of these seem to exist for the sole purpose of teaching Japanese students how to pronounce certain English words. So you may actually never see them in Japanese, unless you teach English. There are 19 combinations in total. You don't need to memorize them all because you'll get used to them as you see them more and more in katakana. It's just important to remember that the vowel sounds can be used like this. Let's run through them quickly. The first 5 are very rare because it's difficult for Japanese people to say the V sound, regardless of whether or not they can write it. Even for words with a V sound in English, we'll usually use ba, bi, bu, be, and bo instead. But when it can't be avoided, or when teaching English pronunciation, the dakuten mark is used with the katakana u, like this.
Va, vi, v, ve, vo,
Next is the W line.
wi, we, wo, wo, ka, wokka.
You'd think they'd just use wo for the last one, but since it's usually pronounced as o, we use wo for things like vodka. H is the only sound in Japanese close to the English F, so we have to use other vowels to get the other possible combinations of F.
Fa, fi, fe, fo,
You'll see these in words like
fi, to, ne, su, fitness.
che we've already seen in the word chase. It's also used for this board game.
Che, su, chess.
In native Japanese words, usually the closest thing to the English T is chi, so that's often used in place of it. But we do use ti for things like
ティッシュティッシュ
the sound tu also doesn't exist in native Japanese, the closest thing being tsu. So for the English sound tu, we use this. This one's pretty rare as it's usually used only to explain how to pronounce English words. Here's an example.
トゥエンティ20
D and do exist for the same reason as T and tu. Think names like
ディンディーン
you'll see things like she and je in names like
ジェイムスジェイムス
that brings our total to 124 sounds. I know I said finally before the last section, but there's one more small but advanced topic I want to mention. For characters that end in an E or U sound, when they come before an unvoiced consonant, you may sometimes hear the vowel sound E and U in the characters become devoiced. The U vowel sound is also sometimes devoiced at the end of words. For example, the common word desu is usually pronounced des. If you don't devoice these characters when they usually are devoiced, you'll be completely understandable, so it's not a huge issue. In fact, some natives don't devoice often, depending on where they're from or their speech habits. Sometimes in very polite speech, normally devoiced mora are not devoiced. For example, des often becomes desu in very polite speech. By the way, when you do devoice one of these vowel sounds, the character as a whole should still be given a full mora. For example, the ku in gakusei is usually devoiced, but it still has a full mora.
がくせい学生
If this doesn't make much sense to you yet, that's fine. I just wanted to mention it because you might have noticed Yuki devoicing some of these characters in some of the words we covered today. But it's quite advanced, and you can worry about it more much later in your journey. There are a few stylistic sounds that only really appear in manga sound effects written around characters, like this one. None of these are really used in spoken or written Japanese outside of this, so we haven't covered them here. But other than that, we've now covered all the phonetic sounds in Japanese and how to read and write them. You can get a full text breakdown of this video for free on tokiniandy.com. If you're a member there, we also cover everything you need to pass the first level of the Japanese language proficiency test, and we also cover most of the following 3 levels. There are over 100 graded reading stories to help you get practice with what you learn, and we even personally correct your speaking and writing practice and answer any questions you have about Japanese in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with us for so long. If you enjoyed this or found it helpful, you might like our Japanese kanji series that has a similar style. If so, click on this video to get started. Or if you want to get right into some Japanese grammar, check out this playlist.